So my name is Lindsay Livingston, and my Pecha Kucha is on Gertrude Stein. So as I was looking for quotations from her, I found a lot that I really enjoyed, especially this one. It says, "You look ridiculous if you dance, you look ridiculous when you don't dance, so you might as well dance." Stein was born in Pennsylvania in 1874 to a wealthy family with whom she spent her childhood in Europe. She studied psychology in college as well as attending medical school at the renowned Johns Hopkins Medical School. This is a photo of her and her family. Throughout her young adult years, Stein felt the increasing societal pressure to be a wife and mother, but she really didn't want to be either of those things, and she struggled greatly with her own identity and her role in society if she wasn't going to be a mother and a wife. So at the age of 29, Stein moved to Paris with her brother Leo, and they, due to their monetary abilities, were able to support artists by collecting many post-impressionist paintings by artists such as Cézanne, Renoir, and Delacroix, among others. Stein began her own salon in which artists, writers, and friends could join in discussions and appreciation of art. Salons emerged as part of the Enlightenment movement in France, in which an inspiring host would lead their guests in intellectual conversation. So here is Stein in her salon with some of the paintings. And the reason I chose Gertrude Stein is because I was introduced to her through Midnight in Paris, in which the main character goes back in time to the 1920s and meets her. So these are some photos from the movie with her salon and some of the artwork and things being shown. During her time in Paris, Stein would become a champion for all kinds of artists, and she's especially well known for her role in the success of Pablo Picasso. This is a portrait of her that he made in between 1905 and 1906, somewhere in there. So Picasso's introduction of Cubism in his art inspired much of Stein's critiques. Cubism gets its name from the cubes and the geometrical shapes that make up the art. They're meant to show the human form from many perspectives, and this was one of his more controversial paintings at the time, La Demoiselle d'Avignon. Along with supporting others, Stein herself was passionate about writing. However, she didn't get a start on her literary career until her late 30s. Much of Stein's writing was difficult for readers to understand, as she intended to employ the techniques of abstraction and cubism in her own prose, so it was very difficult for people to understand. She said, "You will write if you will write without thinking of the result in terms of a result, but think of the writing in terms of discovery, which is to say that creation must take place between the pen and the paper, not before in a thought or afterwards in a recasting. It will come if it is there, and if you will let it come." So Stein wore many hats. She lived a very interesting life. During the World War I, she served as an ambulance driver along with her partner Alice B. Toklas. And something she said was, "A very important thing is not to make up your mind that you are any one thing." That's one of her more famous quotes. Toklas was Stein's confidant, lover, cook, secretary, muse, editor, critique, and general organizer, and remained a background figure until Stein's publication of Toklas' memoirs in 1933 titled The Autobiography of Alice B. Toklas, which obviously wasn't an autobiography. And that was actually her greatest commercial success. So here's another photo of Stein and Toklas. So Stein's relationship with another woman, her dress and appearance, and her unwillingness to conform to gender roles made her an icon of feminism, and she was one of the first of her generation to live an openly gay lifestyle. After the war, Stein went back to her salon in Paris, where she influenced more of the writers we now know as the Lost Generation. These writers include F. Scott Fitzgerald, Ernest Hemingway, T.S. Eliot, and others, some of them pictured here that you can see. The nickname, the Lost Generation, was coined by Stein herself for those who came of age during World War I, particularly expatriate writers living in Paris in the 1920s, because they were wandering lost in a world that had undergone so much change from the war, and she called them the Lost Generation. Stein was also one of the first to establish what's known as stream of consciousness writing style, and that is now associated with Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, and other prominent authors. Later on in her life, Stein went on to be a successful lecturer in the United States for a time, but just like other times in her life, she always returned to France, which is where she spent the rest of her days. So here's a photo of her with the American flag, and then her book she wrote about her lectures in America. It can be argued that without Stein's influence, many of the great artists and writers we know today wouldn't be nearly as famous. She provided a place of refuge and helpful critique for many of the most influential painters and authors in what is, history for America and Europe and basically all over the world, which is cool. Many of the artistic discussions held in Stein's own home were influential in the modernist movement of both art and literature. Stein's avant-garde writing style had a profound impact, not just through her personal writings, but through the opinion she shared and the community that she created. A last quote from Stein: "After all, everybody, that is, everybody who writes, is interested in living inside themselves in order to tell what is inside themselves. That is why writers have to have two countries, the one where they belong and the one in which they live really. The second one is romantic. It is separate from themselves. It is not real, but it is really there." So those are my sources, and that is a wrap. Thank you.